Hi, my name is Vicky Lakudis and I'm a business owner in Sydney Road, Brunswick, and also a committee member of the Sydney Road Brunswick Association. I recently had a conversation with my staff around behaviours coming to and from work in relation to safety, and also what we're doing around keeping safe when locking up very late at night, particularly in a dark area. As a result of those discussions, it became apparent there was a real need for further information and tools, not only for my staff, but for staff in general to help keep safe. As the Sydney Road Brunswick Association, we recently ran a workshop with a series of speakers ranging from a business psychologist, security specialist, the local police, Wishing Foundation, and also Self-Defence Academy, who all offered practical, really valuable tools and information around what we can do as business owners to help keep our staff and help keep our community safe. The common thread that you'll find throughout all these presentations is that ultimately the responsibility is ours as individuals and as business owners to start putting these things into place. And hopefully as a result of that, we work together to build a better community. I really want to thank you for watching and hope you get as much out of these workshops and these presentations as I did.
I commend the Sydney Road Traders at Brunswick for holding such a meeting. Thank you very much for coming down. So I am Dean McGowan. I've been the local area commander for Moreland for the last 3.5 years. I'm responsible for all crime in our fine city, and I'm also responsible for some unsavoury things that have happened to us over the last 3.5 years as well. I've got to be honest and say that Moreland has been historically the #1 driver for crime in the state for many, many years. And we are in a bunch of sort of 5 or 7 other areas, but the good news is that the last 1.5 years for us has been outstanding. Crime's been amazing. We've been reducing it under the state's average for well over a year now. Most of the time, bad things happen to bad people, thankfully, but sometimes bad things happen to very, very good people. So some of the things that we can do to combat that, most of you girls would already be doing that. So a quick show of hands, how many of you are business traders in Brunswick or in Moreland? Okay, good. So some of the things that you already do, tell me. What do you do if you leave late at night? And given that it's already dark at 5 o'clock, what do you do? Leave in pairs, absolutely. If you're a manager of a place, you need to be flexible enough with your rostering to make sure that your staff are leaving together. Yes, it is dark. We are humans. We are afraid of the dark. I still am, even with a gun on, when I'm out on patrol with my staff. It is our natural habitat, where we can't see, we fear that something's going to happen. So some of the other things, and I've got one of my female staff members to write this down, would you believe? So you should park in a well-lit area. If you're coming to work and you know you're going to leave late, park in a well-lit area. You can also make use of security or workmates to walk you to and from the car. If available, take the advantage of taxi services and whatnot. She also said investigate the possibility of carpooling or travelling with work colleagues to and from work, if need be. And another important factor is around removing your work ID when you leave your work. The other thing that that worries me greatly is we call them soft targets in Victoria Police, and this is, I said to you, banks no longer get robbed, but what does get robbed is soft targets, and that's every one of you that run a convenience store, a low-level volume place that has cash on hand. You do the same things every week, you don't change your plans. So I know that some of our establishments with large amounts of cash do the same banking, the same time, the same person takes the money and does this. You need to change your plans. You need to be aware that you could become a target for an armed robbery. You are by yourself generally, female managers leaving late at night. You need to leave with your staff. Us blokes particularly need to be better at what we do. We need to support our community more often. We need to say no when we know mates are carrying on like pork chops or doing the wrong thing. We need to say no when they adopt that policy of putting women down or giving them names or whatever it is in the workplace specifically. And we also need to support each and every one of you in what we're trying to do today, raise awareness around us being safe in Moreland.
So let's begin with murder. Very famous murder occurred in the 1960s in New York. A young woman by the name of Kitty Genovese. For those who've been to university and studied psychology, you'd know it. It was a horrendous crime. It wasn't that late at night. She was coming home and was attacked by a man, and was attacked for a long time. Stabbed, physically attacked, and she screamed. She screamed, yelled, did all the things you'd do, and not one person stepped in to try and save her. Not one person called the police, not one person opened their door and went out and tried to intervene. And the police sort of said, all right, what's going on here? They did some interviews of all the people and said, somebody must have heard or seen something. And sure enough, a lot of people heard something. A lot of people heard, and their responses were pretty amazing. They ranged from, well, I assume somebody else had called the police. Some people even, to justify their inaction, distorted their reality and said, well, I thought it was a bit of a lover's quarrel. Or people being intimate were even some of the responses. I mean, it's bizarre the realities people create to justify their inaction. But the resounding thing was that people thought there was enough people around that somebody else must have done something. We're all subject to it. So you've got to really challenge yourself around diffusion of responsibility. It's a very strong social phenomena and we're all subject to it. The problem is when we reflect upon it on an individual level, we all think we're more morally higher being. So it's a really strong thing that I think is a problem in our community. What do we know from the bystander effect? If you know somebody's name, you don't know them at all, but I know your name, I'm 23% more likely to act in a way to help you if I didn't know your name. If I know something about you, just a little bit of a backstory, I may have only just met you, but I know at least a little bit about you, I'm now another 30% more likely to act if you're in a state of distress. If I actually am connected to you, like you're a friend, a social colleague, something, I'm then a further 40%, which brings us up to about 93% action if you feel a sense of connection with the person. So again, everyone here, a lot of people are business owners and members of the community, and I sort of know that person, their face, yeah, hi. Break down that barrier. Get to know each other. You've got to change the perpetrator's mentality to feel different. I spent half a year working in a prison with perpetrators, the very men who commit these crimes. I wanted to know more about extreme psychology, so I said I'm going to go in there and work with these people. It's not a crime of opportunity. These men spend a lot of time contemplating it. They think about it, they ideate about it, they dream about it. It's part of their psyche. Then they happen to stumble on the right conditions, and that's when they act. So it's a combination of both. You won't do much to change those men and their thinking, unfortunately. That's a bigger societal issue. But you can change the conditions. If you change the conditions, people's responses are different. I reckon you guys probably have the solutions. You just got to talk to each other, get to know each other, be empowered and take action. So I think at the end of tonight, at least get to know 2 or 3 more people, exchange numbers, do whatever you need to do, speak about the recommendations you said about rosters and where your business is, and do something about it.
Now, the way I'd like to think about self-defense is really like learning first aid. You hope you never have to use it, but it's kind of like a nice little, comfortable, confidence-building backstop to have. If you don't have it when you need it, then there's a problem. There's a consequence to that. You know, my grandmother actually died at the dinner table at Christmas and then was revived by my relatives because they knew CPR, and she's still with us today. If they hadn't known CPR, I wouldn't have a grandma. So I kind of think of it that way, right? My strongest hope is that none of my students ever use any of the techniques that I teach them. That would be fantastic. Unfortunately, I've been teaching for enough years that that's not the case. Some of my students have used the techniques that I've taught them and been able to minimise the situation that they were put into and get out of there as soon as possible. And really, that's what self-defence is. It's not, I'm going in there and I'm going to do 10 rounds with the guy. That's fighting, that's sport, that's different. Good self-defence should get you out of the situation as soon as possible, and preferably before it goes physical. That's good self-defence, okay? Unfortunately, what a lot of styles do is they don't put any training and time into what we call pre-fight, which is what is going to happen before it goes physical. They all just start with block, hit. Do you know what I mean? And that's fine, but it's kind of a bit late, really. Like, the stuff that you should have done or could have done before that may have actually got you out of there before it got to the block hit, yeah? So that's what we call pre-fight, and really at the heart of that is what a lot of these guys have already been talking about, which is situational awareness, really. Okay, and what does that mean? What it means to me is being aware of my surroundings as I move about space. Okay, so if I go into a new interior, or maybe I walk out of a building, I have a little look, I see who's around, and I'm making assessments. Are there any potential threats? Who is in my immediate vicinity? Okay, so if anyone is under, for instance, about 3 metres, which is about from me to that camera away, I should really have a good bead on who they are, what they look like, what's their body posture, are they paying any attention to me at all, are they moving towards me, etc., etc. Little things. Okay, eyes. Okay, if I see someone and then I look down, what does that say to them? Is it saying, I'm strong, please don't attack me? It might be saying, please don't attack me, but it's certainly not, I'm strong. It's saying, please don't attack me. This is not good. If I look at someone and then I look straight across, I don't eyeball them, you know, right? Because that's just going to give them an avenue in. But if I look at them and then I look straight across and, yeah, I've seen you. You're not scaring me. I know you're there. This has now changed the dynamic considerably. Does that make sense? It was just eyes, that's it. Pre-fight has to be, I always say to my students, if you do pre-fight well, you should get out of most things. You know, 90% of the time you're going to just get out of there before it gets to you. But it's when it gets past that physical techniques might come in, okay? So maintaining that safe distance, and that's what I was talking about, that 3 metres, try and do that, okay? That really is the key to self-defence, is don't be there. Start at least looking around, okay? Be aware of who's around you. Don't switch off. And if you see something that's a potential problem, move.
Never use words that rise readily to your lips. The wrong approach or selection of words has the potential to aggravate what may be a potentially manageable situation. The right choice of words can diffuse a potentially volatile situation. So, if I said to you, hey, back off, it may be intimidating, it may not be. If I raised my voice and said, hey, back off, again, that might have a different effect. But if I said, hey, back off, that would have a different effect on you, because the experts say that any conflict between role and voice, people believe voice. Content takes from 7 to 10%. Voice carries weight of 33 to 40%. Speaking too loudly means you could be angry or too excited. On the other hand, speaking too softly could mean you're unsure of yourself or your orders. Keep your speaking volume normal. Tone makes up tone. The last example I gave you, it was the tone of my voice. 50 to 60%, your feelings will come across in the way you sound. Verbal skills are a soft approach communication technique that is based on common sense and designed to enable you to gain the cooperation of people, thereby minimising the need to use force. The body language. Body language will more often tell you more about the situation than the dialogue you are having. So if the situation is not resolved and you have to take action, then as you may not be trained in some form of self-defence and may not wish to risk injury to yourself, you then retreat calmly to the nearest telephone and call 000, not your local police station. Try and keep the person within sight for your own safety. Tell the operator you wish to see the police officers. This is because at times a police unit may drive by and see that the situation appears quiet and leave, or you may have called back to say that the person has left. You want to talk to them, you make the operator aware that you want to talk to them, and generally that's what they'll do. They'll get out of the car, come in, make sure everything's all right, take down some details. Do not appear to be overexcited when dealing with police, as it may give the impression you lost control and that you may have contributed to the situation. Obtain the names of the police officers and where they are from before they leave, in case you have to follow up, in case there is an incident to follow afterwards. After the police leave, go and record the incident in the supervisor's diary or your incident register. Put the time, the date, if there's any witnesses, physical description, direction of travel, rego or description of the car, or description of any scars or tattoos. That's what the police will ask you. Do you have any scars? Do you have any tattoos? Do you have any identifying features? That's what you've got to look for. You know, so many times people say to me, oh, I saw a car standing outside parked outside the house and had a couple of people on board. They looked a bit suspicious. Oh, really? Did you get the rego number? No. Well, that should be the first thing you look for. You know, you are what you repeatedly do. Train yourself. Be constantly aware of your environment. Working back late, somebody's touched on it before. There's a clear way, I've been told, from till 6 o'clock. Well, after 6 o'clock, go and move your car and put it in front of the shop or the business. There's no reason why you can't do that, so that when you do finish work, you walk out into your car. You're working inside in a boutique, shut the door. If you've got appointments, you've got a doorbell. If you haven't got one, put one there. I can't go any further because I've been told to wrap up, but if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them, and good luck with everything.
Thank you, sir. Building on the other speakers, it is about our connectedness to each other and our communities, and building communities within communities, because we need communities of trust. We want to be safe, but we don't know if we can trust the neighbour next door. We don't know if we can trust people in the street or not, because there's a lot of mistrust out there. And the mistrust is built through the media and myths about, you know, men being monsters, perpetrators, predators, when that's not the majority of men. So I think, you know, if we look at what can work to keep us safe publicly and privately, it's about that connectedness, because the tactic of the perpetrator is to isolate their victims. So your greatest strength and power is your sense of belonging where you are. Your sense of belonging walking down the street, going to pubs, going to parties. Plan how you're going to watch out for each other. Plan how you're going to get home safely. Make arrangements with each other to text or ring. I'm on the blah tram or train now, should be home at blah. So people have a sense of where you are, when to expect you, what's going on. Because a lot of time we sort of live in a fragmented world where we think, I'll be right, I'll get home, yada, 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 things will work out, it won't happen to me. And it happens to everyone. You know, the service I manage, we work with 60 women and 100 kids every day, and they've all had journeys of trauma. We want to work with the healing, we want to work with each other, we want a community that we can all live in and thrive in. We want a community that enables women and children to feel safe. And to do that, we really need good men to speak out and take a stand.
The bystander approach that Jonah talked about earlier can be developed and can produce really good results, and it's the only thing that works, because when you're out there and all the evidence shows us that men standing up against other men who propose to be violent are humiliating the women and children in their lives, other women at parties and social functions, the only person they listen to is another man. They don't listen to women. So it puts a huge responsibility on the good men to be brave and courageous and stand up, because it's a hard ask and it's a tough thing to do, and there's no dress rehearsal. You've got to think it on the spot. And you can talk it over with your friends, which I'd encourage you to do, and it's really good to do that to help you get the confidence to take the stand when you need to do it. And the men need to know they're supported. They're supported by other men, by other women and kids, and what they're doing is right. We don't want them to be heroes. We don't want them to take on a physical fight. We just want them to point out that what their man's saying or proposing to do is wrong. So it's that's where the rubber hits the road. That's the ball game. And that's what we've all got to do if we want to live in a safe community. And it's not beyond us to do it. We can all do it. So I kind of just want to finish up with the words from Tom Maher, from a very powerful speech he made through the White Ribbon campaign, where he said, "Since Jill died, I wake up every day and read a quote by Maya Angelou, who recently passed. History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. Male self-examination requires this courage, and we cannot end the pattern of men's violence against women without consciously breaking our silence." Thank you.